There's a strange, almost magnetic pull to train tracks. They stretch on for miles, cutting through lonely woods and desolate fields, representing both journey and isolation. They are arteries of civilization, yet they often pass through its most forgotten corners. And sometimes, in those quiet, lonely places, things happen that defy explanation. These are 3 chilling true stories that all unfold on or near the rails. Our first story comes from a man named Mark who worked as a signalman in a remote part of the American Midwest. His job was simple: live in a small signal box next to the tracks and ensure the smooth passage of the freight trains that rumbled through, usually at night. For months, it was the most boring job in the world. Just him, a book, and the distant roar of an approaching engine. But one night, that changed forever. It was just after 2 a.m. The air was thick and heavy, the kind of stillness that precedes a storm. Mark was waiting for a long freight train, the 2:15 a.m. Midnight Express, as the old-timers called it. He heard the whistle blow from miles down the track, a lonely cry in the dark. As the sound grew closer, another sound joined it, faint at first, but growing louder. It sounded like singing, a child singing. Mark stepped out onto the small porch of his signal box, peering into the oppressive darkness. The powerful headlight of the locomotive was just rounding the bend, slicing a brilliant white cone through the night. And right there, caught in the beam, standing between the rails, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, wearing a simple white dress. She was just standing there, her back to the oncoming train, singing a nursery rhyme. Panic seized Mark. He screamed, waving his arms frantically, but she didn't turn. The train's horn was blasting now, a deafening, desperate roar. Mark watched in absolute horror as the massive engine, unable to stop in time, slammed into the spot where the girl was standing. He flinched, turning his head away, his stomach churning. He was sure he was about to witness something gruesome. But there was no impact, no sound of a body being hit. The train just thundered past, its cars clattering on the tracks as if nothing had happened. Mark stood there, frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. When the last car had passed, he shone his powerful flashlight down the empty tracks. There was nothing. No sign of the girl, no blood, no torn clothing. It was as if she had never been there. He called it in, his voice trembling. The police came, searched the area for miles around, and found nothing. No missing child had been reported in the entire state. Mark worked that post for another 6 years, and every now and then, on a still, quiet night, he'd swear he could hear the faint sound of a child singing carried on the wind. Our second story takes us to the outskirts of a small town in rural Japan. A group of 4 college friends, Kenji, Yui, Haru, and Aki, decided to take a shortcut home one evening after a festival. The path led them along a single disused railway line that cut through a dense bamboo forest. They were laughing and joking, the mood light and carefree. As dusk settled, the towering bamboo stalks created a cage of long dancing shadows around them. It was Aki who noticed it first. "Hey, listen," he said, holding up a hand. The others fell silent. Far down the track they heard it, the rhythmic sound of a train. Clack, 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 clack. It was strange, because this line had been abandoned for over a decade. The sound grew steadily louder, closer. They squinted into the gloom, but could see no headlight. Just the endless, dark tunnel of bamboo ahead. Suddenly, Yui screamed and pointed. About 100 yards down the track, a figure was walking toward them. It was tall and unnaturally thin, moving with a jerky, disjointed gait. As it got closer, they could make out more details. It was wearing the tattered remnants of an old-fashioned train conductor's uniform, but its face was a smooth, blank surface. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just pale, empty skin. The rhythmic clacking sound wasn't coming from a train. It was coming from the figure itself. With every step it took, it would twist its head from side to side at an impossible 180-degree angle, making a sickening asterisk click-clack asterisk sound as its neck bones seemed to snap and reset. The four friends stood paralyzed by fear. The thing kept coming, its blank face fixed in their direction, its head twisting back and forth. Click-clack, click-clack. Kenji was the first to break the spell. "Run!" He yelled, and they all turned and scrambled back the way they came, slipping on the gravel of the railway bed. They didn't dare look back, but the horrifying click-clack sound pursued them, seeming to get faster, closer. They ran harder than they ever had in their lives, their lungs burning, driven by pure terror. They burst out of the bamboo forest and didn't stop running until they reached the brightly lit streets of their town. They never spoke of what they saw that night, and none of them ever walked near those tracks again. Local legend speaks of a conductor who lost his mind on that very line, a spirit now forever bound to his route, searching for passengers in the dark. Our final story is perhaps the most unsettling. It comes from a Reddit user who, as a teenager, used to hang out with friends near a long, dark train tunnel in their hometown. The tunnel was old, built in the late 1800s, and had a reputation for being haunted. Naturally, this made it the perfect spot for teenage dares. The ultimate challenge was to walk all the way through the tunnel to the other side, a journey of nearly a mile in pitch-black darkness. One night, the user, let's call him David, and his best friend Liam decided to take the challenge. Armed with weak flashlights, they entered the gaping maw of the tunnel. The air immediately grew cold and damp, smelling of wet stone and diesel. The sounds of the outside world faded, replaced by the dripping of water and the echo of their own footsteps. It was unnerving, but they pushed on, their bravado warring with a primal fear of the dark. They were about halfway through when Liam's flashlight started to flicker. He shook it, smacked it, but it finally died, plunging him into darkness. "Don't worry," David said, trying to sound calm as he aimed his own beam back at his friend. "We'll share mine." It was then that they heard it, a soft, wet scraping sound coming from deeper within the tunnel. It sounded like something heavy being dragged across the gravel. They froze, listening. The scraping stopped. A moment of absolute silence, so profound their ears started to ring. Then, a voice whispered out of the darkness ahead. It was a low, raspy sound, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. It said one word, "Mine." That was it. They didn't wait to see what it was. They turned and ran. David kept his flashlight pointed behind them as they sprinted back toward the entrance. In the bouncing, frantic beam of light, he caught a glimpse of it. For just a split second, he saw something low to the ground, pale and fleshy, crawling on all fours with incredible speed. Its limbs were too long, bent at strange angles, and it had no discernible head, just a lumpy mass of flesh. And it was gaining on them. They ran for their lives, their screams echoing off the curved walls. The scraping sound was right behind them, fast and frantic. They could feel a cold draft on the backs of their necks. They burst out of the tunnel entrance, gasping for air, collapsing onto the grass, their hearts trying to beat their way out of their chests. They looked back at the tunnel's dark mouth. The scraping sound stopped right at the edge, as if the creature could not, or would not, step out into the moonlight. They never went back. David says that to this day, he sometimes has nightmares of that whispering voice and the sight of that pale, crawling thing in his flashlight beam. The rails may connect our towns, but they also pass through places that are best left undisturbed, where the veil between our world and another is terrifyingly thin. Thanks for watching. If you have a chilling story of your own, share it in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the dark. Stay safe out there.